I'm Chronix from the most extreme wrestling, and this is your classic Raw review for January 1st, 2001. This was taped on the 29th of December, 2000, and as I understand it, there was no Nitro competing with this episode, so it was a very special episode. We get the first video clip of Stephanie McMahon having a rampage on SmackDown. It was pretty much how Steve Austin wanted a title shot and this and that, and she wouldn't give it to him because she's being really bad. So he toasts a beer to her and gets beer all over her chest, and she is very upset at that because it ruined her shirt and everything. So as we start the episode, Jared the King Lawler and Jim Ross are telling us that there is going to be a triple threat match for the #1 contendership match. Well, basically what this is going to be is tonight on Raw, there's going to be 3 separate one-on-one matches. And the winner of all 3 of these matches are going to go to SmackDown. And the winner of that triple threat will be the one guy who will go and face the WWE Champion next week on Raw for the WWE Championship, which is held by Kurt Angle. I mean, it's a little convoluted, but I guess they need to give you a reason to watch SmackDown even then, even though SmackDown was an equal show, in my opinion. Okay, so the first qualifying match for the #1 contendership, we have The Undertaker versus Rikishi. Of course, Undertaker is the big-time face for the American Badass, and Rikishi is the horriblest, worst heel ever because no one wanted to see him as a heel, obviously. So we go into the match. Actually, first, as Rikishi is coming down to the ring, he's taking a really long time doing this, and you know, just kind of taunting and just standing there at the ramp. Undertaker pretty much says, you know what, this is bullcrap, I'm tired of waiting on you. So he gets on his motorcycle, rides back up the ramp, and starts chasing Rikishi into the backstage area. But Undertaker brings him back, they start fighting, and then the match actually gets under the way. It would be, I would have to note that Undertaker's ribs are hurting a little bit because on SmackDown he got beat down a little bit, so he's having a little bit of issues with his ribs. The match, pretty typical match. Undertaker tries to go for a last ride powerbomb, but that does not work because his ribs hurt too much. So instead of like doing a choke slam or something like that to finish the match, it's kind of bizarre because they go back and forth, and then the Undertaker hits his patented running, swinging DDT that he does so expertly, as Crystal is making loud ripping sounds as she is cooking dinner.
Sorry.
But he goes for the swinging DDT, nails it, 1, 2, 3. What? I mean, I know that Rikishi is like kind of a horrible character right now, but it's kind of ridiculous to me for just a DDT to take this man out. If you will recall, at Armageddon 2000, in the 6-way Hell in the Cell match, Undertaker fell 20 feet onto the back of a pickup truck, and it didn't kill him. So I don't know, that just seemed kind of far-fetched to me. And Undertaker advances to SmackDown for the #1 contendership match. As we move on to Stone Cold Steve Austin barging in to Stephanie McMahon's office, and you would think that he's trying to get this title shot going, but she doesn't want to have anything to do with it, especially how he disrespected her on SmackDown. So she says, Stone Cold, you're going to have to earn your title shot just like everyone else. And since you're an employee of the WWE, I think tonight you're going to be taking this dude's duties right here. And the dude comes up and he's got this cart of beer.
You said duty.
He's got this cart of beer and hot dogs, and he's going to have to sell each and every one of those so he can get his title shot. And since he's a WWF contracted guy, he has to do this. So he doesn't want to do this at all, and he's just like, man. So the guy goes up to Austin, he's like, whoa, well, good luck, Austin. Mr. Austin, or whatever. He's being kind of a jerk, and it's just funny because Stone Cold instantly beats the crap out of the guy, just to the ground, and it was just hilarious. Poor little dude. He shouldn't have provoked Austin like that, but he most certainly did. As the chants in the crowd start, we want beer, because Austin has to sell all these beers to the crowd, apparently. So, yes. Now we see Kurt Angle, my favorite wrestler at the time, and remained my favorite wrestler for many years from the second he entered the company. He was my man, and he was the WWE champion, and along with his buddies, the tag team champions of Edge and Christian. So thumbs up all the way around for me because those were my boys, Team Edge, Kurt, and Christian. So as they're coming down the escalator, they just arrived at Texas, you hear Christian say, "What smells?" And Kurt says, "It's Texas. Everything smells like that." That was funny. You get to hear the classic lines like chump stain and brutal. And Kurt says that, or Edge says that Kurt is like a superhero and everything, and they're just hating on Texas. And it was pretty funny as Jonathan Coachman himself comes up and says, "Hey guys, I gotta inform you and tell you that you got a match against the Dudleys and Chris Jericho in a tables match. Like 3-on-3, and they're like, "What?" And they're all unhappy about that, so that was really funny. Now we have the one Billy Gunn, who was super over at the time, which I didn't really understand, but he was over, versus the Acolytes with Jacquelyn. Wait, let me restart. This is a really long list of people. It's the one Billy Gunn and the Acolytes with Jacquelyn versus Val Venis, Bull Buchanan, and the Goodfather with Steven Richards and Ivory. So basically, the Acolytes and the one Billy Gunn, for whatever reason, versus the Right to Censor. They show the classic footage, and you might have to search for it on YouTube, but when I saw this clip, I was just like, man, Ivory is so awesome. She's cutting this mock, making fun of promo, this parody of how China had broken her neck, and she's just like, well, I played for Playboy and everything. It was just classic. Like, Ivory, I think she was so underrated, but anyways, the match starts, and it's not interesting at all. I mean, Billy Gunn's got a great drop kick, but, I mean, really, how far did that really get him in his career? This match just kind of sucked, as it ends with the one Billy Gunn getting the pin. Backstage, Austin is checking out his little hot dogs, and he's looking at it, and Stephanie comes in, accusing him of eating the food, or eating his profits, basically. And he seems to be having a little bit of trouble with his mustard canister, and he wants Stephanie to take a look. So he's messing with it, and then squeezes it, and gets all the mustard all over Stephanie's chest, and she's like, ah! Ah! Because it messed up her, $1 million silk shirt or whatever. So she runs away screaming, and I laughed, and that was pretty funny. They show the outside of the arena, and it's got the old WWF logo. And I'm not talking about the scratch logo. I'm talking about the old school, 80s logo. And I thought that was kind of funny. Worth noting, I would say. Now we see Austin sampling some of the beers, as JR says he's checking for quality control, because he's a professional. So, JR always making me laugh. Alright, so now we see Stephanie ranting to Vince McMahon over the phone about all this stuff that's been happening with Stone Cold, and of course Vince McMahon would know about all of that. And then there's a knock at the door. Trish Stratus comes in as Vince says, "Oh, hi Trish." So, that whole storyline is going over, and she gets very mad about that, Stephanie does, because she's like, you know what? Your plastic smile and your big-breasted tactics may work on my father, but they most certainly will not work on me. Stephanie had a great line for that. She says that your boy Test is going to be going in a Intercontinental Championship match tonight against Chris Benoit. Actually, that's what Vince McMahon said. And Stephanie obviously did not like that, because Stephanie does not like Test anymore, and she most certainly does not like Trish Stratus, and Vince is granting her this, and she's Daddy's little girl. She's supposed to be helped out by her father, but she's not, because it seems as if that Trish Stratus is, having a little bit of alone time, a little special time, getting a little bit of special treatment from Trish Stratus. So Stephanie obviously doesn't like this, and she's going in a tirade once again. She reminds Trish that she is the most dominant female in the World Wrestling Federation, and she's not going to have this. Okay, now Michael Cole is doing an interview with the Dudleys about their match about Edge, Christian, and Kurt Angle. Man, why can't I get that right? Anyways, Devon is sitting there talking about testifying and everything, so that's pretty brutal. But the good part about it was that Bubba Ray was sitting there with a spray can, and he was spray painting Edge, Christian, and Kurt on the table, because he's going to put them through the table, basically, right? So I thought that was cool. He wrote their names on it, so he's going to, for the match later on. Okay, well, it's time to get into some serious convolution as we go into the hardcore title match, which is defended 24 hours a day. Now let's see if I can explain all this, because, oh my gosh, this match was messed up and stupid. Of course, you see, it's Raven versus Tazz. Raven is the champion, and he's defending against Tazz. Now, remember that. Now, of course, you know, when we start, we see the trash can lids. It wouldn't be a WWE hardcore match if you didn't have trash can lids flailing all over the place. Tazz gets a noose around his neck and gets thrown into the crowd, which I felt kind of uncomfortable about that then, and definitely watching it now. Okay. Now they start fighting in the crowd. Now they're going to the backstage like they always do. Now they get close to the women's restroom, and I'm thinking, what are they doing? So they run in the women's restroom. All the women run out like, ah! And they go into a stall. And yes, they show the stall, and there is yellow pee in the stall. Okay, that is great. So, gets dunked into the... They get a swirly. I mean, he gives the dude a swirly. Tazz gives Raven a swirly. Oh my gosh. Then the Hollies come running in there, and you know the Hollies are Crash, Hardcore, and Molly. So they all come running in there, and then the swarm of those referees are just flying around trying to break it up and this and that. And Steve Blackman comes out of nowhere and then hits him with another trash can lid. So there's people everywhere. Okay, now Crash covers Tazz. What? Tazz is not the champion. Why is he covering him? But Raven comes in with the fire extinguisher and gets everybody, you know, to fly away. Now Raven breaks a 2x4 over Crash's heads and covers him for the 3. But Crash is not the champion or the opponent. So what was the point of that? But that's how the match ends, as Blackman and Hardcore fighting, allowing Raven to escape, which, you know, it's a 24-hour rule, so as long as Raven escapes with the championship, then everything's good, because he's still got the belt, right? Okay. That was insane. I just couldn't understand that match, but that match was like, wow. Now we're back from the break. Austin is coming down to the ring with an empty beer can. Or empty tray. No more hot dogs, no more beer. I guess he sold it all, but we didn't see him go into the crowd or anything, so that raises the question. Now, since he sold all the beer and the hot dogs, it's time for his championship, his title shot, right? Alright, so Stephanie says, you know, I don't think that you sold that. There's no way that you sold all that. He's like, no, I sold it to a couple of my Texas buddies over here, and they show the Acolytes and Jacquelyn enjoying all the beverages and hot dogs, so, you know, Stephanie's just like, what? So he says, you know, I want to get in there and whatnot, so Stone Cold is like, you know what, this tray is kind of heavy, so he hands it over to Stephanie. He's like, you know, you better watch out, because it's a little bit sticky, and, you know, it's just a little sticky, but, you know, go ahead and have this, because I'm done with it, and it's yours now. You gave it to me in the first place. And you hear the crowd calling her a bitch, or he calls her a bitch, and then the crowd calls her a slut, and you get the slut chants. Poor Stephanie. Oh, it's just so sad. But Stephanie's like, you know what? Get this thing off of me. I don't want this big beer tray on me. Ugh! So Stephanie helps her out and rips it off. But it not only rips it off, it rips her shirt off as well. And she's like, oh. You know, and then she runs away holding her stuff and, like, totally embarrassed as he says to the crowd, you know, there's more foam in that bra than one of my beers. So that was funny. And, alright, now we're going to go into that tables match we talked about earlier. The Dudleys and Chris Jericho versus Kurt Angle, Edge, and Christian. Jericho grabs the microphone because, man, he loves grabbing the microphone, and it's usually hilarious when he does. And he says that Stephanie really shouldn't be worried about everybody seeing her with their shirt off, because the entire locker room has already seen her undressed anyways. So taking ribs at her. Okay. You got Team Edge, Christian, and Kurt Angle coming out and asking Bubba how he feels about how he got put through a table on SmackDown. Edge takes the mics and asks Jericho about Stephanie slapping him in the face, and Christian calls it slaptastic. Jericho responds by calling him Junior, Jerky, and Jackass. Alright, so we get into the match, you get the We Want Table chants, you get the Chris Jericho chants, they're obviously super over. It's a typical kind of tornado tag match, I guess you would say. You get the What's Up, and D-Bon get the tables and whatnot. And this is where we get into the finish, where all the interesting stuff starts happening. Bubba is trying to do a back suplex to Kurt Angle, and he's going to do it with the table behind him, so he's going to break the table, but the table gets moved. You get a couple more of those table spots, like Kurt Angle tries to do an overhead belly-to-belly suplex, one of my favorite moves ever, and the table gets moved by Jericho, so that doesn't get to happen. And then the table is still set up as poor Edge, the guy who never falls through a table or falls off a ladder. He was very smart, and you can see why, because all the other guys that did that, yeah, are probably not as in a good of position. Even though that Edge had to retire early, unfortunately, he did have a very, very healthy for his mind and his body throughout his career anyways. But poor dude, he gets 3D through a table as the whole crowd, is doing the 3D, they're saying 3D in unison in very deep voices. And the Dudleys win, this is very unusual for the Dudleys to win a table match, or any of these matches, really. And they beat the tag champions. They didn't win the belts, because it was a 3-on-3, but they still beat them, so that was very interesting. Backstage, Test is getting ready for his match against Chris Benoit later on. Trish Stratus comes in and says, hey, I don't want to see you because, you got this whole thing with McMahon, and now Albert has left, so TNA, Test, and Albert is no longer, apparently, but she says, no, Test, you were always a star of the team. I want to support you, and I got your back tonight. I want to see you rise to the top of the WWE and everything. And, she tries to convince him as much as she can. She wants him to be the Intercontinental Champion, as I do, because, man, I loved Test at that time. And I just really wanted it to happen. And she says, you need to focus on the Intercontinental Championship. It's like a stepping stone towards the future. So we will see that match soon enough as we get a commercial for the XFL. And it's Jesse, the Body Ventura, saying, XFL, or NFL, like the seats are too much. And I want to go like it was back in the day where I could go with my dad. And that's what the XFL is going to be like starting in a month. When the XFL starts, it's going to be great. As they talk up the XFL, and as the weeks go on, oh boy, the commercials for the XFL are going to get redundant and very ridiculous. As we go in to a backstage segment, as William Regal is leaving Stephanie's office with a big smile on his face. So what is going on there? We'll find out. Intercontinental Championship match. Intercontinental title, the Intercontinental Champion, Chris Benoit versus Test with Trish Stratus. The match isn't that interesting. Chris Benoit, of course, was very great in the match. He probably made the match for me. He was really good, and he was really great as Intercontinental Champion. Test goes for the top rope. He sees Albert coming out, so he dives out there and starts punching him, this and that. Gets back in the ring. Test hits his pump handle slam. And then he goes once again to the top so he can get that big elbow that he does. But Trish Stratus knocks him off. What? So she knocks him off and screws him over, and then Benoit comes in and wins the match. Oh my gosh. So she screwed him over, and Test and Albert is definitely over, and Test is all by his lonesome. So TNA is completely over now. Oh, it's a sad day. TNA, it's just done. But Test stares at Trish. She tries to run away, but Test starts to chase her, and then Albert's over there, and then they duke it out for way too long. They're fighting in the ring, they're fighting up on the deal, and the referees are going crazy trying to end the confrontation or whatever. And that goes on a little bit too long. I didn't feel that the crowd gave a crap either way about anything that was going on in this match. Backstage, William Regal meets the Lieutenant Commissioner of Deborah, and he says, Would you please cover up those rather distracting breasts? I can't concentrate. And she tells him, you're basically going to have to deal with that. And he says, I just spoke to Stephanie, and I have a special surprise guest referee for tonight's match. And I want you to pass that information along to Stone Cold. Now, at the storyline, they have not established that Deborah and Stone Cold are married, so I guess this was just a coincidence. Oh boy! Now, the next match, Lillian Garcia completely botches the entrance because they say, in the next match, we'll have, Dean Malenko and Perry Saturn with Terry, but then she's like, oh wait, those are just the, those are just the commentary people. But yeah, and then she gets into the actual match where it's the Hardy Boys versus Kai and Tai. Malenko says on commentary that his wife is married And he is not, because he's pursuing Lita, and he really believes that him and Lita got this thing going on, even though Lita is with Matt and Jeff Hardy. Kai and Tai gets on the microphone, and, you know, they do their typical thing where they can't speak any English, but they have people overdub them, and they say, "My New Year's resolution is to win this and that," and their mouths are moving all wrong, and then Sho Funaki grabs the microphone and says, "Indeed," which is always funny, but it was really actually stupid. So they have their match, and man, you talk about botchamania. This was one of the biggest botches, and it makes me laugh and cringe at the same time. Okay, so this is how it goes. You know what poetry in motion is, right? Matt gets on all fours, Jeff gets on the opposite side of the ring, runs to Matt, jumps on his back, and then hits the opponent who's standing in the corner, hits him like flying through the air. Well, they try that move, but the guy, Funaki, moves out of the way, so he's like going to hit the turnbuckles. But Jeff is smart, so he jumps on top of the turnbuckles, so it's just in one swell swoop. He jumps, he's standing there, but he gets a little bit uneasy and racks himself right on that connector pole that tightens the ropes. Boom! Right there, and he hits with so much force, he kind of like almost hits his head on the post, flips over, and falls flat on the ground as Taka Michinoku kind of like acts like he got hit, but he so didn't. It looked like Jeff got killed. That botch just, it just is hard to watch. But anyways, in horrible fashion, I don't want to knock Jeff Hardy, but sometimes man Jeff Hardy did not work very smart. I mean, that was not very smart, but he didn't sell it at all. I mean, I would have said, hey, well, maybe you should change the way the matches can end or something and try to sell that a little bit more, because it looked like you died. But he gets right back up and does a poncho to Dean Malenko outside because Lita is trying to distract him, acting like she likes him and stuff. And no, it's a trap. It's a trap. It's a trap. It happens over and over and over. Oh my gosh, Perry Saturn jumps in. It's a big fight. And it pretty much ends in a melee. And that was the end of the match. So, yes. I think, yeah, Matt actually gets the twist of the fate at the end of the match, and he gets the win. Which I'm glad he got the win, because if Taka Michinoku and all them win, that really wouldn't have made any sense, would it? Alright, another number one contenders match. It's The Rock versus Kane. Kane was really over in it. They had a big fight in the crowd, which is the Attitude Era, and they do that, oh my gosh, so much. Spinebuster to Kane. He's going to do the people's elbow, but as he comes back on the second rebound and is going to do the elbow, Kane pops up and does the choke slam. They go back and forth, but it looks like The Rock wins the match. Actually, no, he does not. It was some fakery. He kicked out, and then Kane finishes with the choke slam and gets the win. It looks like that Kane is going to go on and go into that triple threat match on SmackDown. Now we get our XFL commercial showing all the cheerleaders with no clothes on saying, you know, well, don't worry, we'll teach them how to cheer because they're pretty much just sluts. But hey, now we're going to go into the main event. The last number one contender match. It's Stone Cold versus William Regal. And with a special guest referee announced as Stephanie McMahon. Big surprise. Stephanie comes down with her little white and black ref shirt. That's what they look like, right? Yeah. They got the stripes. So they're going to have the match. Of course, you know, Stone Cold's beating Regal. He gets him pinned. It's like 1, 2. Oh my gosh. Stephanie has something in her eye. She can't see. And then she's like over on the side of the rope, like trying to figure out what's in her eye. And Stone Cold pushes her out of the ring, you know. Kicks her right out. Goes back and forth once again. Spinebuster by Stone Cold Steve Austin. She's still having that eye problem. So she's like screwing him over. Austin grabs Stephanie by the hair, and then Regal runs in there and rolls up Austin, and 1, 2, 3, boom! William Regal has moved on in the number one contender triple threat match for SmackDown, and Stone Cold is like, I can't believe this, as he chases Stephanie up the ramp, and Stephanie is sprinting like crazy, so all tonight people are running like crazy. So that's what it is. It's Regal, Kane, and Taker. Triple threat match on SmackDown, and the winner of that match will come next week for the WWE Championship.